Welcome to the Tour Operator Growth Podcast, where we share the strategies, systems, and real-world lessons helping tour operators grow more direct bookings, spend less time buried in admin, and build stronger businesses. Brought to you by Resmark, the leading team behind booking software, websites, marketing services, and digital waivers built for tour operators by people who still actually run tours. Now, let's get into today's episode. Today, we are talking about blogging. We have both clients and prospects asking questions about writing blogs all the time. There's a lot of confusion about blogging and creating content in general now because of AI. So we're getting questions along the lines of, should I even be blogging anymore? Does blogging still help with SEO? What should I be writing about? How often should I be publishing new content? Can I just rely on AI for all of this? Over the next few minutes, we're going to break down these questions, and not to spoil the ending, but blogging is definitely worth it as long as you're being intentional about what you're doing. So where does blogging fit into the Resmark growth engine? Well, it's primarily in the draining phase. So blogging helps potential guests discover you when they're researching destinations, looking for things to do, or just trying to solve a problem. But great blog content also supports the planning stage by building trust, answering questions, and helping travelers feel confident. Greg, here's the question that's probably on a lot of our listeners' mind. If AI is just handing people the answers now, why would any tour operator still bother blogging?
That's a great question. I want to start by first understanding what AI really is. I hope everyone kind of has an understanding of this, but just in case we don't, it isn't some sort of all-knowing robot being thing. It doesn't know everything, right? It is fed mass amounts of information that it uses to make smart decisions, guesses, and predictions. It's not like making up stuff out of thin air. Everything that it utilizes has been given to it, right? It can't just create without knowledge. So just like humans, AI usually gives more weight to credible sources. Meaning, if a well-respected news outlet were to run an article, AI might pick that up and use it as truth because it has credible sources. But if I run some sort of article about the same thing, it's not going to care about me because I literally don't have a website that I do anything on, right? Hopefully, the same way as we as humans kind of weigh what different people say based off of their status, based off of their credibility, our relationship to them. AI is kind of doing the same thing, and so is Google, right? So, the better structured and useful that your blog is and your content on your website in general, the better chance you have of showing up in AI and in AI overviews, ChatGPT, everywhere, right? So the old SEO mindset was I'm going to write a blog, I'm going to target, in this case, I'm going to use a company that I've been working on for a while, a website, Moraine Lake Tours. That's the keyword that I'm going to target, and I'm going to build links. And that's my blog strategy for that post. The new AI SEO mindset is more of becoming the most useful source for answering every question a traveler has before booking that Moraine Lake tour. So how can I write my blog posts so that I'm answering questions and not just setting it up for Google to scan and read? And this changed years ago now with helpful content and EEAT from Google, where the whole focus is more on the user and less on just doing things for the bots. And it's kind of the same for AI. There's some tricks and different things to help with that. So blogs can feed AI information to use when the user asks a question, right? So Google has been working really hard, in my opinion, to create a zero click culture, meaning everything you do is on Google search and you never go to any website. I think that's their goal. Keep everyone on Google. Eventually, more and more booking opportunities will show up in Google and it'll be that much easier, right? And a lot of you are probably seeing your, your number of people visiting your website is probably down compared to 2, 3 years ago. And that's because they're finding more information in AI overviews, ChatGPT, and don't have as much need to come to your website. But the misconception that we are seeing right now is that content's not as important or our website's not as important because AI, right? It's actually the opposite. It's probably the most important it's ever been because, like I mentioned, AI doesn't just get information from nowhere. So if you can create powerful blogs, powerful content on your website that is going to be helpful to the user and structured in a way that AI can take that and use it, it's going to only help you that much more, right? Show up in those overviews and have those links coming from AI. So that means that each blog post should be written with intent and purpose, right? So, Nikki, how can tour operators choose topics that will resonate with their visitors while also being something that AI will want to utilize?
Yeah, good question. So, a lot of people, including me in the past, would write about something just because it popped up into your head. So, I'm not saying you can't utilize that idea, but let's pocket it and use it for inspiration. Every topic that you write about should map out a real question that your future guest is already typing into Google. Now, we could organize those questions into 3 buckets: top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel. So, your top of funnel content is really somebody who's just dreaming or researching. So, we are answering questions that are along the lines of best time to visit Moab. Is the Grand Canyon worth it? That is top of funnel blog content. Think high traffic, so it's going to bring in more traffic. It is going to build awareness and it's going to get you on their radar before they are ready to buy. And then we have middle of funnel content. So this is somebody who's decided that they want to go and is now working out the details. So a couple topic ideas that are kind of middle of funnel might be what to pack for a multi-day rafting trip or a half day versus a full day hiking trip. Now, this is going to produce a little bit less traffic, but these readers are getting a little bit more serious, but they aren't just yet ready to pull out their wallet. That's where bottom of funnel traffic comes in. So this is really somebody who's ready to hit book now. We just have to convert them. So they are typing in inquiries such as Snake River rafting tours or best of comparison. So you're going to get lower traffic to these pages, but they are going to be closest to the sell. So there's no universal rule with how many blogs we should be writing in each one of these buckets, but the most common framework that we tell our tour operators and we actually implement for our own tour operators is 70, 20, 10 rules. So we're going to do 70% of the blogs that we write are going to be that top of funnel content. Then 20% is going to be middle of funnel topics. And then 10% is going to be bottom of funnel topics. So now that we know we are building content in 3 different buckets and they are all along this idea of answering common questions, we could utilize this principle that's called they ask, you answer. So this is a thing that Marcus Sheridan coined. He's an author of the They Ask You Answer book. It's a great book if you haven't read it yet. But basically what you're going to do is write down every single question that you get. And you could utilize emails, AI chats, inquiries that you've gotten, phone call recordings, any question that you have gotten. It should be on your FAQs, but we could also utilize that as part of these buckets. Okay, so now that we have an idea on the questions that people are asking and the kind of content we want inside each of those buckets, we want to put some keyword research behind it. Now, I don't want to overcomplicate it for this podcast, but the one simple thing that you could do that I love doing is just use Google autocomplete. So I was doing this morning. So you could type into Google top canab and then see what Google is suggesting to continue finishing that inquiry. You could also utilize on Google the people also ask section where you're able to see like 4 or 5 relative inquiries based off of what you typed in. And then there's free tools like Answer the Public, which shows you the questions real people type into Google based on a seed keyword. So that's going to be like river rafting or simply kayaking or Moab or multi-date rafting. Now, here's where things get a little bit more challenging. It's not challenging, but you have to think a little bit more strategically. We want to look for terms with real search volume. So how many people are actually searching for this? And we also want to look to see that it has a difficulty score that is not too hard. So we're kind of looking for that sweet spot, a decent amount of volume with a decently low difficulty level. So some paid tools that you could use to help you figure this out are Ahrefs, SEMrush, Moz, and some free tools that you can use are Google Keyword Planner, Ahrefs free keyword generator, and Uber Suggest. But the biggest mistake we see with this is just chasing generic keywords. A generic keyword might be something like adventure travel instead of specific ones that you are actually going to be able to win. So when you are picking a topic, think about what questions people ask, what keywords you need to rank for, the volume and the difficulty level. But sometimes, Nikki, I want to just write to write. Okay. So I'm actually saying that because sometimes I just want to write to write, and that's allowed. So not every post we write about has to chase keywords and we have to do this heavy duty research. The trick is to take the thing you want to write about. So maybe it's a story and make sure that it does a job. We want to be intentional about everything that we're writing. So here's an example. So as you know, if you're listening to the podcast, I've climbed Mount Kilimanjaro and I've been wanting to write about it for a really long time. I actually started a draft about my journey in choosing a tour operator, the trip itself, 2 years ago almost. So, or 1 year ago, I went last year. And I don't want to rank for climbing Kilimanjaro. So those searches are going to be really attracting future climbers, not tour operators. So the wrong audience. So what I write about is going to be intentional. So instead of forcing this to rank, I'm going to do a different job with this article when I get it up. So the idea with this article that I'm writing is to build trust, build connection with my audience. So the topic, the title idea of this is what climbing Kilimanjaro taught me about marketing for tour operators. So I want to be clear about what the post is. It is a story piece. It is not simply an SEO play. Nobody is Googling that title, so it's not going to pull in a lot of search traffic, and that's okay. Its job is to make the audience just really feel something. And the other really cool thing about this kind of content, this story-driven content, is we can put it in our newsletters, we could put it in our emails because that is going to really resonate with the people that are already in our system. And when you're writing content like this, maybe it's the content that you just want to write because it's inspirational and you know that your customer will relate to it. Make sure that this is only a small percentage of the topics you write about. So maybe 1 in every 5 posts, so maybe about 20% of your content should be like this. The rest of your content needs to be written with keywords in mind, the volume, the difficulty, and everything along those lines that we just talked about.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying today's episode, but before we continue, let's take a quick scenic route.
Welcome to our first scenic segment. This is something new that we're adding to the podcast, and I'm really excited about it. What we want to do is take a few minutes in each podcast episode and talk about industry updates, marketing updates, anything that we might think is time sensitive and important for you to know, or maybe it's not time sensitive, but maybe it doesn't require a full episode's worth of conversation. So that's what we're going to spend a few minutes in each episode to talk about. Today specifically, I want to talk about a recent study that I found, and I saw it this week, but by the time this episode launches, it might be 2 or 3 weeks old, but it is still super relevant. All right, so what the study shows is 68% of Google searches is ending in 0 clicks, meaning people aren't clicking out to another website, they are finding their answers, and they are happy with the results, and then they don't go on further to search. That might not surprise you too much, but when you look at the percentage and see how much that's increased over the last year, it's actually pretty crazy. Just 2 years ago, it was at 60%. Now it's at 68%. Who knows what it will be next year? 78, 88, then 98, and then 100? Like, that's crazy. So obviously, one of the big reasons is because of AI overviews. They're now showing up in 1 in 5 searches. And when they do show up, clicks are obviously going to drop dramatically. So why am I telling you this? It's because the same study, which came from Search Engine Land, found that the searches still driving clicks tend to be those branded searches, local searches, and high intent ready to book searches. Again, that's branded, local, and ready to book. That's exactly where you live. People are not going to AI overviews to book a rafting trip. They still need to click through. They still need to compare options. They still need to look at photos and reviews, availability, pricing, and then actually make the reservation. So as this number rises, we still want to make sure that we do not panic and say, we are not spending any effort or energy on SEO. But what we do want to realize is that the generic informational content is completely drying up. The operators who are going to win moving forward are the ones that people are able to search for by name, they're able to find them locally, and they're able to book directly. So now more than ever, you really want to be focusing on building your brand, owning your local listings, and getting people onto your email list so that you own that relationship and the data, because that's traffic that AI is not going to intercept.
All right, and back to the conversation.
Okay, so now we have an idea about topics and how to find them. Greg, what actually makes a piece of content rank these days?
Yeah. So first, I want to mention that just because you wrote a blog post doesn't mean it's going to magically rank in the top 5, top 3 right away, right? SEO is a long game. Sometimes it does. We had a post recently that you did, Nikki, and it jumped up to number 1 really quick. We saw a bunch of traffic from it, and then Google kind of adjusts and it moves it around as time goes on. Sometimes you write a blog and it's like, you know, on page 4 of Google for the longest time, and then all of a sudden Google reindexes it and it's like, hey, this is actually really good content. Boom, and you're back up to the top. So don't get too frustrated with the fluctuations and if it doesn't rank right away, but also don't just leave it there then never do anything with. Um, you can optimize them, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, I'm sure. So some of the things I kind of already mentioned, the helpful content that Google came out with, and EEAT. So we need to make sure that our blog posts are helpful and experience rich content. Those are what is going to really win these days. And Google rewards firsthand expertise. So EEAT literally stands for experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. So all of those are things that you as a tour operator and your guides have. You have the experience, you have the expertise in your industry, you have that authoritativeness because you're a tour operator. You're going to build that trust as a tour operator way better than if I were to just write a blog post about your business, right? Or something that you do. So nobody can write with more authority about your company and your offerings than you. So make sure that you are acting that way as well. Write about firsthand experiences, author credibility, or have your authors have credibility. So this is you, your guides, people that have been there and done it, right? Have blog posts that offer original research or data or information that people aren't going to get anywhere else. Give specific examples, have citations and references. So when you're linking to other articles or giving, insight into other credible sources as well, that's helpful. And then clear ownership of the information. So an example post here, let's say you're a zipline company. You could have an example, or you could have a blog post that says what to expect on your zipline tour, right? That's pretty generic. Most zipline operators probably have a blog about that or an FAQ about that, a section somewhere on their website. But the way you can kind of build that credibility a little bit more is frame it more from like your first zipline tour, right? So that little bit of this is your first time, things to expect, but then also make it from a guide's perspective potentially. So the title might change to what to expect on your first zipline tour, a guide's perspective. This now adds more credibility because your guide is someone that your visitors are going to have to trust in this case. And they are going to rely on their perspective to really push them forward and help them understand what to expect, right? And now, once you get into writing the blog, make sure that your introduction is really solid as well. And an example of something that might work really well in this case is after guiding thousands of guests through our zipline course, we've noticed the same thing. Most first time zipliners are nervous before their first line and smiling by the time they finish, right? So that one sentence immediately establishes experience, authority, and a unique perspective, right? This is the perspective from the guide. The authority is that we've done this thousands of times. We've had thousands of guests here. And the experience obviously is that, they're going through the zip line. They go from the first zip line to the last, and that experience of seeing them kind of smiling and not being nervous anymore. And I've been ziplining. I've seen the exact same thing happen where people I was with were extremely nervous. And by the time they were done, they were just like, wow, that was amazing. So it's going to resonate with people as well. Um, so the rest of the post, as you go down the page, some things that you could include in this to help make it good content is answer the question immediately. So whatever question you're posing in the title, you need to make sure you answer immediately. Don't make me read, you know, 15 paragraphs before I get an answer. This is like the recipe example for me. I absolutely hate going and looking at recipe websites because they are just awful. I have to read I have to scroll. I've never read any of their little blogs. I have to scroll all the way down to find the recipe, right? And so don't do that with your blogs. If I only read 2 paragraphs, I should understand the answer. Include FAQs, cover related questions that users ask, and links to other blog posts you've written. So this is kind of how you can build this kind of hub and spoke model of a key focus with other pieces that help build that up, is having other questions that relate to the content you're writing and interlink your blog post, interlink your content. Having clear headings is super helpful. Avoid fluff, provide specifics. Don't just have this fluffy article like the recipes again about whatever it is you're doing. Be to the point, provide specific examples, and then
I
be
think that
accurate and up to date. Go ahead,
the
Nikki.
the cooking recipes legitimately make me angry. Like I'm just trying to read it, and so I leave the article and go straight to Chat GPT because I cannot stand reading them, especially when you're on your phone, which usually you are if you're in the kitchen. Goodness, horrible. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, little side note, I actually started using Claude to do recipes. On Sundays, I cook dinner, and I started calling it AI Sundays, where I go and find the recipe through Claude and use Claude because the interface is freaking awesome for how it does recipes. But that's for a different podcast. So just to wrap this section up, key takeaway here is all of this is really good for featured snippets in Google as well. So if you're asking and answering questions, you're going to show up in those little snippets on Google search as well and in the AI overviews. So this example blog post really demonstrates search intent. It demonstrates EEAT and firsthand experience, and then also AI friendly helpfulness. Remember that AI gets all of its information from the content and information that's given to it. So the better your content is, the more likely it's going to pick you up, especially as it's evaluating all the other content out there. So this might sound really time consuming and hard to do, to focus and have this much intention on every single blog post. So, Nikki, how can an operator turn this into a system that is sustainable and doesn't, turn 5 blog posts into being the only 5 blog posts that the operator had in the last 3 years? How can we make it sustainable so it's repeatable and something that's done on a regular basis?
Yeah, now more than ever we can. But what I want to say is most operators, you cannot write a post once a week with the way that we used to do it, 3-4 years ago. So how do we build that content engine that is sustainable? And a lot of that is going to be through AI. But the one thing I want to get across is consistency beats volume. So one genuine post is going to be 20 thin posts. What does that mean? So although we're going to talk about utilizing AI, it still does take some time to create something that is in your tone, your voice, and so on and so forth, which, like I said, we'll go over. But if you're spending an hour writing a blog post, which, 5 years ago, that same blog post would maybe take you 8 hours to do. So 1 hour is nothing. So if you're using Claude or ChatGPT or whatever LLM and it takes you 1 hour, great. But that is going to be better than writing and publishing 20 blog posts that the 20 of them all together took you 1 hour. Okay. So it's much better to write, one genuine blog post where you took a little bit of time behind it. So just remember that. Consistency is important, but don't focus so much on the volume of content that you are publishing. Also, the other thing is don't think about it as just one blog post. So if you're thinking, so let's say that one blog post takes you, we'll say 30 minutes to 1 hour. And you're like, oh, I don't have 30 minutes to sit down. That's a lot of time out of our day when we're super duper busy. But don't think about it as it's just the blog post, because that blog post, we're going to be able to repurpose it for several social media clips, sending it out in our email, converting it to a newsletter, interlinking it on other web pages. So it is not just one article. And the other thing is I want you to start delegating this. So whether you are doing it and delegating it to Claude or your LLM of choice, or you're delegating it to a content writer, to your SEO team, whatever that looks like, you do not have to do this all on your own. The other thing too is you could utilize tools. One tool that I love to utilize is called Whisperflow. It's kind of like a voice dictation tool, but it really generates your thoughts that you're saying. So it generates your words in a more organized manner. So it's not just based off of the exact words you're saying, but it allows you to be really efficient. So you're not having to sit down and write. You're able to utilize something like Whisperflow, and there's a few other tools out there whenever you're drafting something up. But now we're going to talk about AI. So we're going to utilize AI to do the outline, to edit, to proofread, to help us come over that writer's block that we might have. But we are not going to use it to publish generic AI text. Google and AI is not going to reward you for this. So like I said, we do not want to just get a bunch of blog content and pop it up on our website because Claude gave us 20 blog posts that are decent, right, from our viewers' eyes. Like, okay, they read okay, but there's a bunch of M dashes in it. It's just generic fluff. We don't want that. That's not going to do anything for us. Don't even waste 5 minutes on that. So
Can I add something,
how
Nikki?
can, yeah, please do.
So to build on how you can use AI, those are all great that you mentioned. But one thing that's really helpful too is go and look at your competitors, go and look at other industry experts, and have Claude, have ChatGPT, whatever it is, analyze their blog posts as well, especially if you're trying to kind of compete with a competitor's blog post. Have it analyze their blog posts to pull out some of the things that they're doing well. Obviously, don't copy it, but it can then help you understand, okay, maybe if I frame it this way, it's going to be a little bit better than their blog post, or I can answer that better than their blog post. And then obviously you can go and read it yourself too and do that as well. But it's a great way to just get more context quickly so that you can craft something that's even more targeted toward your customer base, but also going to be better than your competition.
More valuable. Like you could even have it say, okay, well, what's the number of items on the packing list that I should be having based off of what our competitors are doing? And it's going to come back and say you should have 12 because all your competitors have 9. So make it better. Why not? Why not add those extra 3? Okay. So how do we build this AI assistant? So we're going to allow it to run on a schedule. So that's where that consistency actually happens. So it is doing it automatically. So Claude or whatever LLM, I'm going to use Claude Cowork because that's what I work out of. So it is actually going to do all the research for you. So you can connect your SEO tools that you're using to pull in fresh opportunities, world search volume, difficulty scores, and surface the winnable topics automatically. And like what Greg was saying, Claude is going to be able to look and study your competitors. It's going to check what they're ranking for, where the gaps are, and your article is going to be able to fill that in. And then it is going to draft the post. But it doesn't just draft the post because you said, hey, Claude, can you write an article on this? No, it drafts the post based off of the research that it did. And this is actually research that is real data because it's connected to your Ahrefs or SEMrush account, whatever SEO tools you are using or your SEO team is using, you could connect that one. Mostly, you can connect that into Claude. All right. So when it drafts up the content, you're going to be able to review it, of course, and you could have it send the review to your inbox, to your Google Drive, into your Asana or ClickUp project management tool if you use one. Wherever you want that draft to be produced, you could view it there. But this is where I see people go wrong. They take that draft and they automatically upload it to their website and they don't review it. And they could even have the AI draft in the images and the formatting and actually do the publishing automatically. So this is where I say, take a step back and do not do that, especially for tour operators. So yes, have Claude do the research, have Claude even mock up the draft, and then take that draft, use a tool like Whisperflow, give it your feedback through a voice because that saves a lot of time versus texting. Give it some quotes, give it some other information based off of what you view as an owner or whoever on your team is using this because you know your business best. Have it add in that additional uniqueness and it's going to be a lot more based off of your local expertise. Now, Claude will do a decent job, but if you do that, it's going to be an added layer of success. All right, so the engine is running and producing content. Great. How does an operator know that this is actually working? And how patient do they actually need to be to see any sort of results with their blogs?
So they need to be patient enough to listen to our next episode. Because our next episode, we're actually going to touch on this a lot. We're going to talk about Google Analytics and how to make sure that's set up properly so that we can track success. But just remember that SEO is a long game. Usually don't expect things to just rank number one immediately. It takes time. It takes a strategy behind what you're posting as well. But the metrics that matter are, your organic impressions, your clicks, ultimately are these pages helping drive revenue, drive people to the booking flow. If they're just coming to that blog post, reading it and leaving and never coming back, what point is the blog post doing for your website? So we're going to talk about tracking next. So don't go anywhere. Listen to the next one. But just to wrap things up, Nikki, what can tour operators do right now to get their content engine off the ground?
Yeah. Before I give some quick bullets here, I wanted to tell you a quote that our SEO manager said this morning. So I asked Isa, I said, if you had to give a tour operator, one of your clients and one of our accounts, a piece of advice for continuing to write blogs in the age of AI and all of that, what would you say? She said, I'd start with the questions your customers ask before they book, build every post around a tour you actually sell, and lean into local expertise. I love that she said that because you know your tour operation best. And then she said, that's what we follow here at Resmark when we're creating blog articles. We look into the keywords, the questions people are asking on Reddit, and even the questions coming through the client's contact us page, AI chat, and social media, because those are the real pain points that target customers care about. So I think that's a good summary of everything we kind of talked about today from one of our actual SEO managers. So if you don't do anything else, here's kind of where to start or what to do this week, this month. Write down the 30 questions that guests ask you the most. You should know these and make sure that they're answered in your FAQs. Add internal links from every existing blog post to relevant tour pages. Refresh your best performing old posts from 2000 and 2025 with relevant 2026 info and new photos. And at the end of 2026, do the same thing for 2027. Set up Google Search Console so that you can see what you are already ranked for. Connect your AI assistant like Claude Cowork to your business info and your data, your Google Analytics, your Google Search Console, your SEO tools, so that you're working with raw numbers and you're allowing Cowork to actually do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. And lastly, commit to how many blogs you want to post per month and just do it, because even going into 2027, writing blog content is so going to be worth it.
That's it for today's episode of the Tour Operator Growth Podcast. If you got value out of today, follow the show wherever you listen and leave us a quick review. It's the best way to help other operators find it. And if you want help putting any of this to work in your own tour business, book a call with the team at resmarksystems.com. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next one.